I wanted to see if I could make a pair of matching rustic candle holders. I have this piece of red oak. It's definitely wide enough and long enough, but it definitely isn't rustic. The challenge of this video will be to see if I can distress this lumber to make it look rustic. And if you're familiar with distressing lumber, I'm not going to be using the vinegar and steel wool trick. I'm going to be trying something new. We'll see how that turns out. The first thing I want to do is make it look like this is more than one board. So I take it over to the router and use a V-bit in the router to create a couple of grooves to give the illusion of 3 different boards. Next, I'm marking out a couple of lines. I'm just drawing, getting ideas. I'll trim the ends to different lengths so that it enforces that illusion. And then I come back with a file and I'm just giving them a round over and kind of smoothing out any lines that are a little bit too harsh and weathering all the edges. Don't worry too much about this. We'll do more when we get to the next step. Obviously, as you're doing this, you want to be careful you don't do the same pattern on every corner of the wood because that could start to look planned. And I want this to look as natural as possible. And now it's time to move on to the next step. I have a wire wheel on an angle grinder, and I'm going to run this in the vertical position and use it to strip out the softer grain in between the hard grain of the red oak. Now I'm running this grinder without any guards. I've used an angle grinder a lot and I'm comfortable doing it this way, but admittedly it would be safer with the guard on. Wire wheels also tend to fling wires out occasionally very hard, and it's a good idea to wear protective eyewear. Make sure you get all the corners and the edges. The brown marks you see on the wood right now are just burns from the grinder. All of that will disappear here in a little bit. Next, I'm going to light up the flamethrower. This is a handheld propane torch. I'm going to start by burning all the edges and the ends, and then I'll move on to the face. Now, if you could lightly burn the entire thing, that would probably be the way to go, but it's hard to get an even half burn. For the sake of uniformity, I'm going to burn everything black, and then we'll come back and controllably remove that charcoal until we get to the shade of color we want. Now that it's all burnt evenly, I'll come back with the grinder and evenly remove it until I get to the color I want. You can see all of that dust flying off. That is charcoal. This time I'm using the grinder in the horizontal position. The vertical position would be much too aggressive. It would probably strip most of it off and we'd have to reburn it again. But in the horizontal position, I can controllably strip off as much as I want, and I'll get some cool milling-like marks on it that you'll see later. Now, in some places the grain tears out easier than others, and there were a few spots it went a little farther than I wanted it to go, so I just came in with a handheld torch and darkened up those areas by hand. A quick tip, just always keep that torch moving, or you could start to get some sections that look like they've been deliberately burnt. That's nice. You can see now those lines I'm talking about. It looks like those are bandsaw marks or maybe circular saw marks from the mill. That's exactly what I was looking for. Now it's time to make the candle stands. We're going to make these out of 1/2 inch bar, and we're going to make them scrolls. Here we're sharpening the ends so they fit into the scroll bender, and then we're going to give them a slight curve so that they're a curved scroll instead of just a flat scroll. Once we've got our desired radius, we can go over to the scroll bender and bend the scrolls.
Do you remember how hungry you got when we were doing this?
That reference was from when we did these. These are all solid scrolls, and every one of those was bent by hand on that scroll bender. It was a lot of work, but what a beautiful railing.
Little more. Right there.
I'm using a flat bottom tap to tap a couple of holes in each of these scrolls. I've lined them all up and I'm holding them in the vise so that I could drill the holes and tap them. This is how I will attach it to the wooden backers later on. Then over at the CNC table, we cut out some 4-inch plates and welded them to the top of the scrolls. For the finish on these, I'm going to go for an oil rubbed effect. How you apply this effect is you heat the metal up hot and then you rub oil onto it. Around our place, used motor oil is never something we're lacking, and we happen to have a bucket on hand with some quantity. That was too cold. The oil didn't burn on. We'll have to go much hotter.
Get that user in.
Wow, that's a lot of smoke.
There we go, we got more heat that time. Alright, that should do it. Let's take a look. Yeah, we got color. That's so pretty. Yeah, we should probably go outside.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's go outside. The oil in this bucket isn't deep enough to plunge the entire thing into, so we're going to have to do each end of each scroll. You can see I'm bobbing the scroll up and down, and the reason for that is because since we have to do this in 2 dips, I don't want you to see the transition line between the 2 dips. So by going up and down, I'm hoping to blend that line out. Then we did the exact same on the second scroll. With those done, I could move on to finishing the wood. I marked out and drilled a couple of holes to match up with those in the scrolls and countersunk them to the size of the Allen head. Now it's finish time. I've been using this Minwax Helmsman spar urethane and I really like it. You can see it provides a pretty nice amber, which if you're going for that color, looks really nice. In the past, I've thinned this down with mineral spirits to the point where I can apply it without brush marks, but for this project, brush marks are going to be just fine. Now here's something I didn't stop to think about. When I put the finish on, it darkened up a shade. So if you do some distressing like this, keep in mind that your finish may darken it up considerably. So if you're going for a lighter look, you're probably going to take off more char with the grinder than initially looks good, and then let it darken up when you apply the finish. In the end, it came out good. I just wish I would have removed a little more char before I put the finish on. Here is the finished product. I'm pretty happy with the way these candle stands turned out. I like how the wood weathered, and that oil rubbed patina on the metal looks really good. But I'm probably biased because I made them. So let me know please what you think of them in the comments below. And if you like videos like this, please subscribe.